We just lost 66,000 jobs in Canada, and the unemployment rate has gone up to 7.1%. That's the highest level we've seen since May of 2016, if you don't count the pandemic years, of course, because that was an anomaly. This is also the second straight month of job losses. July saw 41,000 jobs disappear. So we're clearly not talking about a one-off blip anymore. Something deeper is going on. So 66,000 jobs gone in August, 60,000 part-time and 6,000 full-time. Sectors hits the hardest were professional, scientific, and technical services with 26,000 jobs lost. Transportation and warehousing with 23,000 jobs lost, and manufacturing down 19,000 jobs. Interestingly, construction actually added about 17,000 jobs, which actually might be one small silver lining to the report. Now, economists have been expecting a gain of 10,000 jobs. Instead, we went backwards by a lot. That's a huge miss compared to forecasts. The unemployment rate is now sitting at 7.1%. And here's the thing, it would have been even higher if 31,000 people hadn't dropped out of the labor force altogether. So not only are jobs disappearing, but some people are actually giving up on looking for work. And when you compare this to the United States, it's not a Canadian problem only. In the US, job growth has also slowed dramatically since May, and their unemployment rate is edging higher too. The problem with this is when the US starts to slow down, and if they end up going into recession, it will only hurt us more here. Whenever the US gets a cold, we will catch that same cold and perhaps even worse. So let's talk about why this is happening. So part of the pressure is global. Obviously, tariffs of the US are still hitting Canadian exporters, especially in steel, aluminum, and autos. Even though some goods are eligible under that Canada-US-Mexico agreement, certain sectors are really getting squeezed. And when you combine higher trade with higher interest rates at home, it creates a pretty rough environment for businesses. And when businesses feel the squeeze, hiring slows, or worse, layoffs start, people get let go. Now, what does this mean for the Bank of Canada? This is where markets are really going to pay attention, okay? The jobs report basically convinced the market that the Bank of Canada will have no choice but to cut rates at the next meeting on September 17th, which is just 12 days from now. Economists from TD say we could see 2/4 point cuts before the end of the year. Capital Economics went even further, saying September cut is almost nailed on. So a cut in September or in 12 days is almost for certain now, right? There is a chance it might not happen, but the odds are now stacking up for a cut. But there's a balancing act here that we have to remember. Inflation numbers come out on September 16th, so one day before the Bank of Canada's decision. So if inflation stays a bit sticky, they'll be nervous about cutting too aggressively. And they really don't want to fuel another round of price spikes of inflation, right? So with these job losses stacking up, it's hard to see them staying on the sidelines any further. I feel like they have to make a move here, and we have to wait and see what happens. Wages did actually rise 3.2% year over year in August. That sounds decent when you read it, but when you factor in the cost of living, groceries, gas, housing, it doesn't feel like much relief at all. And this is the bigger issue. Canadians are already carrying record levels of debt, lines of credit, credit cards, car loans, mortgages. We are so stretched with debt. Okay, when jobs disappear, those debt loads don't just vanish, right? People's debt doesn't disappear when they lose a job. In fact, that's when the problems compound and get worse. And that's why household finances are at a real risk right now. And I don't mean to be negative. I'm just reporting straight facts, numbers, and data in my own way. Obviously, I'm trying to tell it to be a story to you so you can understand it. I don't like that I have to tell people this or that I have to say this, but my whole goal is to be honest and truthful about what's happening in Canada and with real estate right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you, saying that prices are going to go up from here, because they aren't, in my opinion. Now, let's connect this obviously to real estate. Some analysts are arguing this is setting up for the next housing boom. I don't think so at all. Their logic is once rates get cut, borrowing gets cheaper, blah, blah, blah. Buyers will come flooding back like we saw in early 2022. The same old story. But here's where I push back. Rate cuts don't matter if people don't have jobs or if people can't qualify. You can't qualify for a mortgage if your income isn't stable or high enough, or if you lose your income. Yes, construction is adding jobs, and yes, lower rates could free up some demand, and it will. It will get people off the sidelines. But if unemployment keeps climbing like it's doing now, and this is something I've been watching for months, actually, this whole year I've been talking about how we need to keep our eyes on unemployment. That's going to put a lid on housing demand, at least in the short term. And on top of that, immigration levels, I talked about earlier, they're being slammed down. The temporary foreign workers or the non-permanent resident numbers are collapsing, right? People are leaving the country in massive numbers. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't believe it. I'd like to hope that that data is real, and it should be real. We have to kind of assume it's real. I mean, if all the numbers are complete false, then what's the point of even releasing data or reports? So, I'd like to hope they are real numbers and believe they are. But here's my opinion, my take on this. We are in a fragile spot, and I don't want to tame that sentence. I don't want to make it sound like things are going to be okay. We are in extreme territory now. Both the job market and the housing market are vulnerable, okay? Especially with these unemployment numbers, and neither one can fully recover without the other. I do believe that real estate is cyclical. Obviously, we're in the down cycle, and prices will rise again eventually. I have no idea when, so don't ask me. It might be next year, it might be 5 years, it might be 10 years. But I don't think it's happening as quickly as some are predicting, especially people, in the industry, whether they're from the big real estate brokerage brands, RE/MAX, Royal LePage, these companies, or the media, which tends to kind of promote these companies out there and saying that the housing market's going to come roaring back. Rate cuts are coming, but job growth needs to return before we see real momentum in housing. And not only that, if we see multiple rate cuts or big rate cuts, it signals to the market that we are in trouble. And that doesn't improve things right away at all. It actually tends to make them actually worse. So if you're a buyer today with secure job, long-term horizon, there could be opportunities, right? As sellers, they'll get a little bit of motivation by this news. But if your job situation is shaky and you're stretching your budget thin and you have a lot of debt, this patience might actually save you a lot of stress. Housing doesn't just run on interest rates. It runs on jobs, and it runs on the messaging from the Bank of Canada and the media and everything. And right now, jobs are disappearing faster than expected. I hate that I have to say this, but it does not look good. And I wish I thought the opposite, but I'm trying to be as transparent as possible with you guys. Things do not look good for the next 6 to 12 months. Let me know what you think.